Hey, Dan.
Hey, everything good?
Everything's good. You look all set up and good so far, so
Does this look okay back here?
yeah, I mean, from what I can see right now, yeah.
Do I sound okay?
Here, hold on, let me see something. Yeah, yeah, it looks good. Sorry, I just zoomed in on the.
Okay. Is the presentation in front of you?
Yeah, I'm trying to get it back. Hold on.
Okay. So what are they seeing right now? The presentation or the presentation and the Sally behind me?
So they will see the presentation. I haven't let anybody in. The only people that are in right now are our, like, it's just Phil, who is our,
Right.
and myself. I haven't
Right.
let anybody in yet, because now I'm trying to figure out. I changed my view so that I could.
You want me to restart it?
Nope. It's my view, me. You're good. You're good. Everything's good. I see the presentation up on the front, on the screen.
Okay. So then when they log in or when you let them in, they're only going to see the presentation, not me,
Correct.
not the Sally.
Yeah, I mean, they'll see you, but
Okay.
because I can see your picture, but they won't see, I mean, you're sitting kind of in front of the Sally, so you're good.
Right.
All right, give me a minute.
Okay. I'm fine.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Summer Exchange webinar series. Today we have Dan Brown from Tube Light Denko. He is our outdoor lighting and Sally product manager. He will be discussing harnessing the power of solar and revolutionizing signage with Sally. Dan?
Thank you, Tara. Good afternoon today, and I hope everyone's doing well. And I want to thank you first and foremost for taking time out of your busy day to look at this presentation on solar for signs. I hope at the end of the presentation you'll have a better understanding of what we've been doing in solar for probably about the last 8-9 years, and the progress that has been made and what we're doing on a day in, day out basis. I will be going into a PowerPoint here in a minute, but I just want to let you know at the end of the PowerPoint, there'll be time for you to write down my contact information if you'd like to get a hold of me at a later date. We'll take time to answer any questions that will arise, and I think Tara's going to keep track of those, and she'll let me know when they come in, or we'll do them at the end. And then at the very end, I'm going to step aside, clear the screen. I have a demo unit behind me that I will show you a few things about our solar program one-on-one to give you a better understanding what you'll need to do if you ever want to pursue solar for signage and really the installation of all the gear. And you know, I don't want to make it sound this way, but it's not rocket science, and it's very easy to do. And we've made it very easy for our clients to install and to have the signs light up with solar. So with that, let's get started. About 8 years ago, 8-9 years ago, we partnered with a company in Aurora, Illinois called J&S Technologies. They've moved to the state of Washington here recently, so that's where they're based out of now. And Judd McCormack with J&S Technologies is an electrical engineer, solar guru. He knows everything there is to know about solar. And he was doing solar before we approached him. So it wasn't like it was new to him, new to us. He was doing it for years. So what he did, knowing what we wanted to do with the comments we were hearing from our clients on, is there a good solar option out there? He put together a program called Sally, which means Solar Adaptive LED Lighting Equipment. And technically, Sally is the name of their controller. And the controller is not so much an on-off button that turns the sign on and off, although it kind of helps that. It's basically a good power management controller. It's a dual redundancy controller, which means there is a backup built into it. So in case one side of the system were to ever go down, the other side would pick it up and the sign will keep running as usual. When I say it's a power management controller, it really takes care of the power from coming in from the sun and the solar panels to the batteries, so they won't overcharge and burn up, to the extent once they charge at, let's say, 3 or 4 in the afternoon, the Sally will shut the charging down to like a little trickle charger, like you'll have at your house. On the same note, and I'll use this for an example, let's say there's 4 batteries in a sign. It is designed to take the first battery down to 50%. Once it hits 50, it goes to battery B, and then that battery will probably run it the rest of the night. So then the next day when it's charging, they'll fully charge, and then the next night it'll go from B to C, C to D, and D back to A. So we're really resting the batteries and making sure they're fully charged at all times. And in doing this, we've noticed on a good average, the batteries are lasting 5+ years using the Salle controller. So it is a very good controller. It is UL. It is also listed in the SAM manual as well. So people will ask, why are we going solar? And technically, there are two good reasons. As we've all been there, there's no electricity to the sign, or the electricity has been broken somehow. Or maybe one of your clients want to go green. I will say, probably in all the systems we've sold, everybody's used the reason there's no electricity to the sign. So they'll give us the opportunity to quote to use solar. And there have been many, many times to where the Salle and the solar was much less expensive than trying to run electric to a sign. So you can use solar on pylons, monuments, pole signs, channel letters, directionals, and billboards. I'll get this out of the way kind of early. People will always ask, can you do an EMC? In theory, we can. And we've done real small ones. Let's say they're 18 inches by 3 feet. Not much power there. Can we do a big one? Like a 4x8? Yes, we can, but it's just way expensive. It is very costly, and it takes a lot of room for the batteries and the solar panels. So basically, the premise of most of our jobs have been just monuments, pylons, things of that nature. I wanted to just show you a picture of the Salle controller. You'll see the black boxes in there. Those are the controllers. You have A and B controller. Typically, everything runs off the B controller first. Then if there's an issue, it'll switch to the A. You'll see to the left a little time clock. Behind the time clock is a photo cell. Those will come with every unit that we sell, so we can program the system the way that you want it programmed, and everything will run correctly thereafter. This is just, again, an outside picture of the box, how it would look on the pole under the solar panel. Again, we'll have all the UL listings, the same manual and everything on these controllers, just in case you're asked during the installation. This is a picture of our bronze controller. This is the second controller that we have. It's technically the same setup as the Salle, except it's not a dual redundancy controller. It's less expensive than the Salle, and I guess to put it easily, that we would use this on a directional sign, a signage of that nature, to the extent, as we all know, directionals can get run over fairly easy. And Lord knows if one gets run over, it's a lot less expensive to use this than the other. There's probably a $400 price range between the two of them, but this is good for directionals and things of that nature. Quick history, back in 2020, I guess when COVID first started, ISA awarded us the Innovation Award in Lighting and Lighting Components category. They reviewed our systems along with other systems and other things out there at that time in 2020, and they gave us the award, although not probably many people knew it because we didn't have ISA at that time. But I just wanted to let you know what we did there with the Innovation Award. People always ask me, which is better, 12 or 24 volt LEDs for solar? Hands down, there's no questions asked, it's 24 volt. 24 volt is 50% more efficient than 12 volt LEDs. And that's most of the time. When I say most of the time, sometimes it's greater, sometimes it could be 40%. But when you're dealing with the cost of solar, And what we do, wattage means a big thing. I think all of you know that we sell Principal LED, Current by GE LEDs, and Sloan LED. All three of them have 24 volt, along with other manufacturers that are out there. So 24 volts the best way to go. And to go to a quick little story, I had one guy that was questioning my thought on that. And I just did a quote recently. This was not the story for the quote I did recently, just to give you an example that I did a quote in 12 volt and 24 as far as the layout of the LEDs. And in 12 volt, these channel letters was going to be maybe 170 watts. In 24 volt, it was 98. So when you can knock out 70 watts in a sign, it means quite a bit. You'll see highlighted in yellow, there are three things that determine the cost of solar. Total wattage in the sign, hence why I always want to go 24 volt, the total hours being used, and the location within the country it's being used. On the last point, I could do the same sign in Miami and in Wisconsin, and I can guarantee you there'll probably be one solar panel in Miami, two solar panels in Wisconsin. It's just the sun hours and where the sun hits the country during the day. That takes care of some of the cost on that. The total time, technically we could set our time clock up in our photo cell to run dusk to dawn if needed. So you're looking 15, 16 hours a night in the wintertime. We could shut the sign off, let's say at 10, 11 o'clock at night, or we could shut it off at 10, 11 o'clock, midnight, whenever, and then turn it back on in the morning if you need morning lighting, 5 in the morning till, let's say, 8 in the morning in the wintertime. So we have a lot of flexibility as far as what we could do with the timing, what you and your customer needs for the sign to be lit. Typically, when I do quotes and setups for solar, we do a minimum of a 3-night backup in the system. May sound a little bit corny how I'm going to say this, to the extent we'll give you enough power in the sign for 3 nights if it's pitch black all day for 3 days. People will say, okay, what if it's cloudy out? And I always say, go to the beach in Miami and on a cloudy day, and you'll come off the beach with a sunburn. You can still charge on a cloudy day the solar panels to the batteries. So we'll give you a 3-night backup. Sometimes it could be 4 or 5 nights. It just depends how the calculations work with the wattage, the hours, the location within the country of what we do. So we do have a flexibility to increase that if your client or yourself would need, but typically it's 3 nights minimum backup. The one last thing that people are a little bit surprised on that haven't went through this before, we use no power supplies in our systems. Everything will run off the batteries. And typically, if you ask the LED companies, they'll tell you that the LEDs run just as good or better off the 12-volt batteries than they do running through a power supply. So not using a power supply is not a big thing. Our signs have been working perfectly for years. So just want to let you know that's just one less thing to put in a sign to worry about. In theory, your batteries is your only consumable that you have that you would have to replace over time. The LEDs will last you, for many, many years. The solar panels will last you many years as well. I'll get into that a little bit deeper as far as the warranties and things of that nature. Typically, when a customer calls me, emails me, says, hey, let's do solar for this project, these are the 5 questions or 5 things I kind of put in front of the customer to just let them know what we're doing and what I need. I'd love to see a layout of the sign just to see what's going on with it, what type of sign it is, things of that nature, so I can get a better idea of what you're trying to do. I'd like to know if you've already done an LED layout. And if you have, and let's say you did it in a 24-volt modular system, that's great. Just send me how many modules are in the sign and how many watts they are per module. So it could be something that I'm not selling. Just tell me it's 0.6 watts per module, and I've got 100 modules in the sign, so you have 60 watts in the sign type thing. If you don't have that, I can do the layouts for you and get that done for you. Then I'll ask you how many nights you want the sign to be lit, the city and state, just so I can program the sun hours into my setup file to know what you'll need as far as the hours and the batteries and the panels. And probably the most important question, in all seriousness, is can the solar panel face south unobstructed to the sun? And that is the most important question. Even if you tell me it can go south, the solar panel could face south and there's a big tree in front of it, I guarantee it's not going to work. So you really want the panels to be free of trees or buildings as much as possible to go, to make things work properly. And I'll give you a quick example here. Let's say I figured a system that needed one 250-watt solar panel, but you told me that the panel had to face west for whatever reason, or east. I'm not saying we can't do that. Probably what I would do, I'd have to calculate the loss of going east or west or north, and maybe put a bigger solar panel out there to capture more sun. So I could have went from a 250-watt panel to 270 or maybe a 300-watt panel, just so we could capture as much sun to charge the batteries, just so the sign comes on day in and day out. The warranty on our systems, on the controllers, are 5 years. On the Salle controller, it's 5. The bronze controller is 2, just to clarify. The solar panels are 5, but I will say we're buying 25-year-old, not 25-year-old panels, excuse me for that, 25-year panel that are under warranty. They're rigid monocrystalline panel. They're very good panels, and they'll last longer than the sign. So the warranty is good on all of this, as far as probably what you'll need to give your clients as well. The batteries have been lasted very well, again, with the Salle controller. So we should be in good shape if you ever want to proceed and do one of these jobs. One thing that Tube Light Denco will not directly get involved with is to tell you how to set up a pole, let's say, to mount 1 or 2 solar panels, put your control box on the solar panel, and maybe strap the battery box to the base of that pole. I'll give you the dimensions of the solar panels, and the 250-watt solar panel is 39 by 65. It's a big panel. It's like a 3 by 5 panel, a little bit bigger than that. We'll give you the weights. They're about 42 pounds, 43 pounds. We'll let you do the wind loads, and we would recommend on larger panels to use a 4 3/8 round schedule 40. If you're doing a small solar panel, like a 100-watt panel, we could use a 2 3/8 round schedule 40 to do the mount. Down the line here in a few minutes, I'll show you some pictures, and I'll explain that a little bit deeper and what we're doing with our mount and how things work that way. I'm going to get into a few pictures now just to show you some jobs that have been done, and maybe put some ideas in your head as far as how does this look out in the field? How can I present it to my clients things of that nature. First and foremost, I just want to show you the battery box. People ask about that all the time. We typically sell a vented lockable battery box that you can strap to a pole. And then there are times we don't sell a battery box if it's a monument sign. We may put the batteries under the monument sign. Not so much save the price of the box, although you are saving that price, but at times it's just as convenient to put the controller and the batteries under the monument, things of that nature, or maybe in the sign. It just depends on what the situation is. This was really the first system we sold on the East Coast many years ago. It was in Philadelphia. And you'll see the sign in red to the right, the solar panel, and then the controller and battery box underneath of it. The sign on the left is at the Ohio State Outpatient Facility Center, and they wanted the solar panel to be on top. We put everything inside the sign as far as the controller and the batteries, and it's been running. And fortunately, that sign was facing south, north and south, so the panel's facing south and everything was good to go there. The sign on the right, we have a couple panels you'll see, and we're lighting up different types of lights. We have floods, we have some sconces on the left, things of that nature. It's a double face sign. But again, in showing you some of these pictures, I'm just trying to give you ideas, different things that have been done, just to put thoughts in your head what you may want to do. This one here is just a basic sign. It's out in the country, in a small town, and they just wanted the panel to be probably 8-10 feet away, which is fine. The battery box is underneath, and then that's powering that sign there. The one question people will ask me is, how far away can the solar panel pull the controller and batteries be away from the sign? I'll show you later in a couple pictures down, but typically if you're 40 feet away or less, there's no additional cost. But let's say you said, hey, we have to be 80 feet away, 100 feet away. We can do that also. We just need to know that up front so we could quote the appropriate size wire, a heavier gauge wire, so there's no power loss to the sign. So if you're trying to install this to where the solar panel is facing south and you have to be 80 feet away, we could do that. It'll just cost a little bit more money with the heavier gauge wire. This one here was done in Columbus, Ohio at the Cummings facility. It had a couple panels, as you see, the controller and battery box. This one here is just to let you know that there are flexible solar panels that can be used, that's in the marketplace. We haven't used a lot of them, but we have used them a few times where needed, where the job where it spoke for it to be used. But I just want to let you know that they're typically 11.5 inches wide, the smallest ones, up to about 35 inches long. But we can do different things with that depending on the location. People have asked, well, can I put flexible, let's say on a sign in Wisconsin? I probably wouldn't recommend it, and it would also depend on how it was laid on the sign, but there's too much snow, ice, and things like that in the northern states. It would not make sense. If we're talking in the southern states, that's where we could use something like this as far as a flexible goes. As we all know, during COVID, the kiosk came alive and everybody started to do those. So I just wanted to show you a picture of a few that was done by a company in Michigan. And that's a 4-sided lit sign at the top. And in all honesty, there's probably 20 to 25 watts probably in that sign. That's a 60-watt solar panel. And you'll see that then the guts of everything, as far as the batteries, the controller, are inside down at the bottom of that sign. You'll see on the right hand side the mounts and the degree of slant on the solar panel. When we do a job for any sign company, we do all the work for you basically. We'll set the panels up in the array. We'll have the mounting brackets, everything ready to go, so you just slip it on a pole. And we'll have the right pitch on the solar panels, so you'll capture as much sun during the day, so you'll charge the batteries at night. And again, the signs will just keep working day in and day out. Quickly, this is a front view of a West Memphis sign. I just want to show you on the back of it is where we put all the gear, the panels, just to give you another instance as far as where things can go on a sign, as far as the controller, panels, or batteries, things of that nature. This is another directional down in Richmond, Kentucky. And you'll just see how things are wired, how it's set up again with the pitch on the solar panel, how it may look on a directional, things of that nature. It's hard to see on this sign, but there is a 4 3/8 pull behind that panel. And they just decided to mount the solar panel there. I think this is down in Arkansas. You'll see the battery boxes, controller there, but there was really just a big warehouse to the left of that. No obstructions, no anything on the solar panels, but that's what that company did. And again, that's just been working fine as well. This job here, we just did recently in the last year, maybe 6, 7 months, out in Arizona. There's a town out there that had these I-beams, and they wanted their logo and those little lights on each side lit up with LEDs. They had one on the end of this street and one on the back end of the street behind it. So you'll see on the right, we put the solar panels, we shopped around and we got the right size solar panels to put on the I-beam to where nobody sees the panels. Being it's in Arizona, very little snow out there per se. So covering those is the least of our worry. And then we just put the controller on the back end of one of those posts along with the batteries at the base, and nobody sees it because there are bushes behind those columns. So everything was hid very well, but at the end of the day, everything looked very nice. This was a job in Cincinnati at the airport. We did it probably in the last year. But where I want to go with this is just a 12 by 12 single face. You'll see the panels of batteries behind. Excuse me. But the one thing I wanted to let you know, being that's a 12 by 12 sign, we put the LEDs, I think on this sign, 8 inches back from the face. And we only have 112 watts in that sign. So I guess I'm going to have this conversation with you real quick as far as I was telling everybody that 24 volt is the best way to go, and it really is. So let's say you have a typical 4 by 8 sign double face, and you say, hey, I'll put 4 8-foot bulbs in it. We're good to go. They're 24-foot bulbs, and we should be good to go. I've done many layouts in that situation, and believe it or not, it is a lot less wattage to put, let's say, a baffle, ACM, whatever, 6 inches back from each face, put the LEDs on it per the LED layout, and you're going to have a lot less wattage using modules than you are with 24 volt steps. Just something to keep in mind. If somebody demands it, and I say that jokingly, if they say, hey, we want to use sticks and nothing else, I'm good with that. I just think that if you could save money on the solar by using the modules, it's the most economically best way to go. But again, y'all do whatever you want. I'm just giving you the best way to make it to be less expensive for you and your client to make sure you hopefully you'll get the job. This job was about a year ago too. This was down in Georgia. And it's just one set of signs there, as you see, a couple panels in the battery box. The thing about it on this job, there were 4 of these that we shipped at one time that they needed for this town or complex. So we shipped 4 systems down, just as you're seeing, to one company to get installed. But whether you're doing one sign or 3 or 4 signs, you know, like it all works the same. And sometimes if the signs are close enough, we can run the same controller for both signs. It just depends on how far apart they are. This one here was a neat job up in New York. And a little story on this one. Those solar panels on top are 65 inches. So you have 130 inches there, laying them right at side by side. The sign was designed to be 10 foot, which is 120 inches. They wanted solar on this one really bad. The customer did, the sign company's customer. So they increased the sign to be able to put the panels on top, put everything else underneath of it. One question I get asked quite a bit is the permitting. How does that work city to city, state to state? And in all honesty, I don't have a good answer for you as far as I stay out of that, because every city, every state has different regs, and it's something we just stay out of. In New York, you can only imagine it can get sticky at times. And they was trying to get their permit and they was having trouble getting it. And the owner of the sign company said, hey, it's just a glorified flashlight. All it is. It has a battery and the LEDs to light it. And strangely enough, the guy listened to him long enough and said, yeah, you're right. Here's your permit. I'm not going to tell you it's that easy all the time. It's been easy 98% of the time. I've had only a few people come back and say, hey, I've had to go through a few things to get the permit. But in general, it's been easy to do. But I can't speak for the whole country and every town and locale that's out there. But that turned out to be a very nice looking sign. Then the next 2 slides I'm going to show you are rooftop jobs that we were involved with. I think this one was the channel letters on side of the building. Is a pretty big set to have 4 panels and the batteries. We will not get involved with how to mount this on a rooftop. That will be between the sign company, the owner of the building, and the city, let's say. The main thing is you just need to make sure it's secure to the rooftop, make sure the solar panels can face south, get plenty of sun, and you're good to go. This picture here is sort of typically the same thing. This one, I think, had 2 panels on it. This job here goes back to what I was talking about. How far away can the solar panel controller be from the signs? This was done in Indianapolis, and they wanted a rooftop mount, and they had a sign on each end of the buildings. The distance between both sets of signs was 100 feet. So we ran 100 feet of conduit both directions. The sign works perfectly, no issues. It's powering nice, the whole 9 yards. So again, there are different ways of doing a sign, and that's why I like to see the layout on the initial conversation to see what you're involved with, to see if we can make it as economically pleasing to everybody as possible, just so you get the job. All right, that's my last slide. So I'll let you take time for a minute to copy some information down, maybe take a snapshot if you want, my email and phone number. I'll go back to Tara to see if there's any questions that came in. And then after that, I'll step aside, go over the demo unit real quick just to show you some ins and outs on that and what will be expected from us when we ship it to you, and then what you'll need to do to install it.
Hey, Dan, 1 second, let me check. So one question, when the batteries get weaker, does the sign not light as bright with the full battery power?
Technically, no. The signs are on or off. They're on at full power until they're off. And again, and I'll just assume there's 4 batteries running a sign. Typically, one will go down to 50%. Then when it does change to the next battery, the sign doesn't flicker, anything like that, but they will not get weaker. And the same way with, there was a sign that we did in Georgia, and I think it was a Coca-Cola sign, that we were probably 70 feet away from the controller to the sign. And there was a little bit of footage in the sign. I can't remember the exact footage, but the sign company kept asking me, saying, hey, do I need the midpoint to power all the LEDs and, you know, this, that, and the other? And I said, no, you don't. Just start them from the beginning and you'll be good all the way through. And it was, and it worked fine. But again, the sign's either on or off.
Okay. Another question, can the solar panel lay flat on a monument sign?
Down south, possibly yes. Again, up north, I would not recommend any solar panel laying flat, because in Wisconsin, you get a foot of snow one night, temperature stays at 15 degrees for a month, that snow's not moving. If you're in Arizona, you know, Mississippi or someplace like that, it's very doable if it makes sense to do it, yes.
Okay. And last question, does using 24-volt LEDs in channel letters make a difference from 12-volt LEDs?
Yeah, I mean, again, I kind of went over some of that a little bit earlier, but it does. Sometimes it's close enough that 12 volts okay, but you should always look at both options. And if it's a big enough spread in wattage, I'd most definitely go to 24 volt just to help reduce the wattage within the sign, to help reduce the cost. And I'm not going to get into a quick kick on 24 volt, but knowing what I know about 24 volt LEDs, if it's kind of good enough in solar, it's good enough for maybe your day in and day out basis. Because there have been times I've converted shops that use nothing but 12 volt, and I did layouts using 24. And this one sign in particular that I'll never forget, there was like 275 LEDs in this sign, 5 power supplies. We went to 24 volt. It went down to 150 or 55 LEDs and 2 power supplies. So 24 volts a good system. I'm not kicking 12 volt to the curb. There's many good places for it. It's just something to think about as you're working and how things change within the marketplace.
One more question. On slide 22, the panels are staggered. Does that affect anything?
Let's go back to that. No, there, as far as the effect, as far as the sun, no, and those are definitely facing south. And this is really a bad shot of that, but they're all getting, I think one of them is out further than the other. We discussed this recently, Judd and I did, on a job we're quoting, and it's a pretty big pull that these panels can go on. And we were talking about either stacking them similar to that or just on top of each other, but those panels are fine the way they sit right there.
Okay, that was it.
Okay, I'm going to stop the slideshow and then. Okay. Can everybody, Tara, is this okay? Can everybody see this
Yep.
okay?
Looks good.
All right. Technically, what we have is our demo unit right here. We have the solar panel, sign, controller, and batteries. Typically, when we quote any job, there will be a line item on the quote that says quick assembly. And to tell you up front, we charge you $355 to really put all this together. We'll have the batteries in the battery box. We'll have the solar panel in the solar array with the mount, to where all you need to do is slide this on the pole, tighten it down, face it south, and you're good to go. And then you'll see this is the time clock here. Then back here is the photo cell as far as to turn on the sign if you're not using the time clock, which will come with every system. But the one thing I guess I'll do this quick, so hopefully it makes sense, is when this comes in, it's all put together to the extent the panel will be wired into here, the batteries will be wired into here. But in case they're not, Judd will clearly mark where these need to go. Just run the wires up, plug them in, tighten them down, you'll be good. But 98% of the time, they'll be wired, ready to go. As far as the batteries, when you install this on the pole, the panel, the controller underneath of it, and maybe strap this to the pole at the base, all you need to do is plug in the batteries, which is a plug like you're seeing here. Plug the batteries in, take the wire from the controller to the sign, wire it up, and everything's done. So again, you're not having to put everything, you don't have to put the solar array together. You don't have to worry about, am I wiring this correctly within the controller here? All that's going to be done for you. There will be complete instructions sent with every unit. There will be phone support if needed, but Judd is very sophisticated on his paperwork. I mean, he gives you more than you'll ever need. But again, it's just as simple as mounting this, mounting this, mounting this, plugging in the batteries, taking the wire from the controller to the sign, and you're good to go. You'll see this is a lockable piece here. You can lock things up here as far as this door so nobody can get into it. The one question I do get asked also is how high up should the solar panel be off the ground? Technically, if you have very little or hardly any people floating around the sign for whatever reason, let's say it's off a highway and there's nobody out there, you can put the solar panel, 3 feet off the ground. But if there's a lot of pedestrians, a lot of people around it, you may want to keep to the bottom of the panels, maybe, 8 foot off the ground. It's never happened, but we all know there's a little kid out there with a baseball bat, always wanting to know what will break. To the best of my knowledge, we haven't had that happen yet, but you just don't want to give them the opportunity to do it. But I'd keep it probably 7, 8 feet high minimum, just to be safe about things. Other than that, there's one last thing too. You'll see here are complete instructions on how to operate the time clock. And I say this jokingly, if you ever get to the point you want to change that, I'd prefer you call us before you did it yourself, because if you make a fatal error, and switch this from a 6-hour operation to a dusk to dawn operation, the batteries will go pretty quick. Down here on the left, we put all the information on the sign as far as is it a 12, 24 volt, the wattage within the sign, how many hours we're running it. And then on the batteries, let's say you have a sign out there for 5 years, 6 years, and the batteries need replaced. You can buy them through us. You can also get them locally at a battery store. The only thing I say is match up the batteries. These are 100 amp hour batteries. So if you walk into a battery shop and they say, hey, I have 80 amp hour batteries on hand, don't do it. Match them up and things will work perfectly. Again, you can get those through us or a local dealer, but you should be good to go either way. Just match them up the same way. But other than that, that was my presentation day. Tara, is there any other questions or anything?
I do not see any other questions.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for taking time to see what we've been doing in solar for the last 7, 8, 9 years. It's been working well. People always wonder, does it really work? If you get sun on that panel during the day, it'll come on day in and day out, no questions asked. But I just want to thank you for your time today. You have my contact information. If you ever need anything, give me a call, send me an email. We'll get the process started and see how we can help you and your client with the signage with Solar for Signs. Thank you so
Dan.
much. Yep, have a good day.
Thank you. And if anybody missed his contact information, you can always email us at marketing@tubelight.com and we can get you Dan's information. Thanks again, Dan. Everyone have a great day.